All right, let's go over the ERAS application so that you don't have any confusion while you're looking to fill this up for yourself. And it's going to be very important because this is what they're going to be looking at while they're deciding upon your application. All right, a few basic things up front. Make sure your account details are proper. First name, middle name, and your last name. Make sure, a lot of people miss out on their middle name. If you have it on your passport, on your ID, make sure you fill this up properly. Then again, if you had a previous last name, it could be if you had a name change perhaps, or you married and you had a name change, make sure this is proper. Preferred phone number, make sure it is text enabled, phone call enabled, everything is there. All right, so this could be a little confusing. If you have a permanent address, that is the address that is on your ID card, on your driver's license, or that is on your passport, make sure you put that one over here. If that is the same as your current address that you are living in currently, then please provide this over here. If it is the same, then you will only have to click here. Is your permanent address the same as your current mailing address? Yes, and that will auto populate right down over here. However, for example, you are living in a dorm or any place else, make sure that you are able to check your mail at this address. If you're going to be leaving this address, make sure somebody is there to pick up the mail for you. All right, moving forward, work authorization. Are you able to work in the US? If yes, then click yes. If you are a green card holder or a national, then definitely you will be able to work in the US. Where is your current work authorization? You will have a drop down over here, and you can select what actually pertains to your particular situation. A lot of options over here. Go through this, make sure that you do not make a mistake in this. Then for foreign medical graduates, if you need a visa sponsor through ECFMG, you're a foreign medical graduate, then yes, you will need it. Click yes right over here. Doesn't matter if you want to go for a J1 or an H1, unless you know clearly which one you want. I think you should just put yes right over here. Make sure that you make this selection. If you're not looking for an H1B or a J1 visa, and you have a work visa in the US, then make sure that you are able to select the appropriate section over here. If you are a US national, of course, it's easy for you. Just check right over here. Things will get a lot easier for you in the future as well. If anything else, DACA, diplomatic service, anything else, make sure you choose the right selection. If you currently reside in the US or Canada, please identify your current state or province of residence. Easy answer if this is what you are doing. If you are a foreign graduate and you are an observer here in the US or doing any type of research work, then make sure you select this right over here. Anyways, moving forward, now match information. NRMP match. I plan to participate in the NRMP match. Yes, and you should have already obtained your ID, so please put that in over here. Are you participating as a couple? You have to look at your own individual circumstance, whether it is going to be beneficial for you to apply as a couple or not apply as a couple. That is for you to decide. I do have videos on my channel where I talk about whether it is beneficial for you to actually apply as a couple or not. So check those videos out. Moving forward. Then of course, if yes, then you will fill out your name, the specialty they're going to be applying to, just fill that out. If you are applying for the urology match, this is going to be very specific for that, so put in your number right over here. Then some basic information, the USMLE ID, make sure you have these in properly. If you are a DO applicant, then provide your number right over here. All right, moving along, because this is a long application. Now the biographics information. This has fairly increased and enhanced in detail over the past few years. So all right, so this is going to be up to you. If you're Asian, all right, what type of Asian are you? You're a Bangladeshi, Cambodian, Filipino, Indian, so many choices: Pakistani, Taiwanese, Vietnamese, everything else is over here. You're Middle Eastern or North African, make sure you have the right selection. You're white, it is asking for, are you English? Are you French? Are you German? I'm not sure how many generations they want you to go back, because a lot of people in the US, the whites, would probably be of one of these origins. If you are Hispanic, then you have your selections right over here. All right, so this is going to be important. Language fluency. So It's good if you are native or near native or advanced. And programs want you to be either native or advanced. And they don't want you to be good, fair, or basic, because then you won't be able to operate. So do you meet or exceed the advanced level of proficiency in English? Click yes. Even if you feel, hey, your English is only good, I would suggest that you click yes, because you will learn. If you're not that fluent, you will learn to be fluent. And in the US, you need to be able to get your message across. You don't need to be a master in English grammar and be very eloquent. You only need to have the ability to communicate effectively. However, for residency purposes, you need to be able to, of course, speak English in a manner that is clearly understandable. You don't need to be eloquent, you need to be clearly understandable. I would say put in yes, you are advanced, because otherwise programs may have filters that may exclude you if you put in anything less than advanced. So just keep that in mind. And of course, you have a problem, then do work on your English. All right, moving back. So this is actually fairly important, because there are many places in the US where they have a lot of Hispanic people. And if you are good in Spanish, you have a very high likelihood of matching in those programs, because they will be selecting candidates that speak Spanish or French Creole perhaps, or maybe even certain areas in the US where there are Chinese people. Let's say in Flushing's in New York, a lot of Chinese people. So it will benefit you if you mark down that you have expertise in so many other different languages. All right, so make sure you have your language over here. They have Vietnamese, they have Hindi, they have Afrikaans, lots of languages over here. And they have listed over here Chinese. I know you could be a Mandarin speaking individual, or a Cantonese or Fujian, Shanghainese. I believe there was a Shanghai language as well, right? Shanghainese. But anyways, moving forward. So if you have been in the US military, of course, you do get a few perks, and not just in your residency, but few other things. And of course, you know all about that. However, if you are, then make sure you mention it right over here. Make sure you fill this out properly. Then hometown, what do you consider to be your hometown? Make sure that you suggest that, hey, this is my hometown. This is where I consider home. Put this right in this section. All right, now it is going to be fairly important, because we are getting into the residency portion of this application, and geographic preferences is where you will prefer to apply for your residency. And I actually do want you to read this, because this is going to be fairly important. You necessarily don't have to fill up anything in this section. If you feel that one particular area, that is exactly where you're going to be applying, then yes. If you know for sure and you are certain, then make sure you fill this up. If you want to keep your options open, I would say let this go. Or if you feel that, okay, you will be applying to these two areas, then plug it in there, because programs will be informed that you have preference for these areas. Make sure if you have a preference, put it in here. If you don't have any preference, you want to give yourself more chances, keep yourself broad and you are not restricted, then I would say let it go. Don't fill up anything in here. So basically it reads the division preference section offers you an opportunity to communicate your preference or lack of preference for a particular geographic divisions. So indicate your preference or lack of preference for up to 3 US Census divisions. So you can always look it up, but this is what it is: Mid-Atlantic, New England area, South Atlantic, East, South, Central, Western, and you can look at this Pacific right over here. All right, so we will be moving forwards. Okay. Setting preferences. So this is if you want to consider whether you want to go to an urban area or rural settings. Indicate your preference or lack of preference for rural or urban settings. All right, if you don't have any restrictions, you are an ING, you will go anywhere you don't want, or you are pretty sure that, hey, you may not be going to the top tier programs which are in a certain area, or they are definitely in urban areas, then don't play with your future, and make sure you just say, hey, I have no preference at all. I'm open. I will look to make my fortune wherever I go. All right, now some more important stuff. You have to have this right. Okay, higher education. All right, this selection allows multiple entries for each undergraduate and graduate school that you have attached, that you have attended. You read this properly, because if you are a US medical student and graduate, then this will certainly be applying to you, because in the US people do an undergrad, a 4-year undergrad degree prior to their medical school. For foreign medical students and graduates, that may not be the case. Now, if you are a foreigner, you have not had any other education prior to your medical school, and you were just getting into medical school from your high school, then you will mark as none. Let's have a look at this. All right, if you are a foreign graduate, you will click none right over here. All right, if you are a US national or a person who has gone through the US educational system, then you have your institutions. Make sure you put these things in properly. These things are not to make mistakes in, so make sure you have no mistake in any of this. Moving forward, now this is for the section that provides where did you have your medical education, country, institution, degree, degree month, degree year. Make sure this is correct, that the listing that is actually mentioned on your degree is going on this. I know this can be confusing because your graduation date could be different from your degree date, because when I was done, I actually was heading to the US much quicker than our graduation date actually. And I had to get my degree out sooner. So I have to make sure that whenever I put my date for these things, I have to make sure that the degree date, the date on the degree is mentioned in this section. All right, if you were in one school, then just have this done. If you had more schools, then maybe you need to combine these two. All right, moving forward. This is largely for people outside of the US, because many people outside of the US probably have done some degree of training already. During my residency, I had dermatologists from Brazil. I had radiologists from Italy. I had a surgeon from India. So I had an ophthalmologist from Egypt. A lot of people already have had a previous life, and now they want to change and continue or flip their life altogether, because a lot of people doing ophthalmology in Egypt probably will not be getting ophthalmology here in the US, because that is usually taken up by US graduates. Anyways, if you had a previous life, that will of course benefit you in any of this. So don't think that's a waste, and use it wisely for your future. And this is a place to put in all your experiences that you have beyond any US graduate, and you can actually stand out and apart from a lot of candidates if you had stellar and excellent experiences and training in your previous life. All right, so you're going to fill this up: type of training, residency, internship, postgraduate, specialty, anything at all. Make sure you have it down over here. Again, these things you should not be getting wrong. Make sure, because you are going to be providing this during your residency. They'll have different applications for different exams, your board exams, then your state licenses, everything in the future. Make sure whatever you have down here, make sure it's accurate. Make sure this is what you're going to be doing in the future as well, when you're going to have your document services for different states being sent over, whether you're going to be applying for jobs to hospitals. This all needs to go exactly in the same order, in the same sequence, the same dates. So make sure you get this right. Make sure there is no mistake in here. All right, moving forward, extensions and interruptions. Now this is a aspect a lot of people they may have. For example, myself, I had spent 2 years as a postdoc fellow here in the US, doing all types of basic sciences and clinical sciences work. So this is where you would type in your interruptions in your clinical practice, perhaps. Or you got married, you had kids, you took care of the kids, and now you're back into medicine. Any of that, explain why and now what you're going to do right now. And you're back in the mix of things, and you are ready to take on the world and expand your career into medicine, surgery, ENT, whatever it is. Make sure you have a reasonable and logical explanation for this section. So if you had extensions and interruptions, make sure you click yes and give a reason, and just fill it up properly. Now moving forward, your application, your awards and honors. So this is actually important. If you have had any awards. So in the US, many schools have awards, or they have fraternities for people who have excelled in their school and they're on top of their class, they're 10% of the class or something similar. A lot of foreign schools may not have any of this, so that's fine. You don't have to fill this up, you don't have to make things up. If it's there, then do it, because there's so many other things to judge whether you are a stellar student or a graduate from a foreign school. But here, if you don't have it, then don't worry about it. Other honors or awards, make sure you fill these things up. You can actually fill up multiple, so the more you have, the better, because they want to look at you and they want to look at you as a candidate that they want. Professional memberships, if you have memberships of any societies, then of course plug it in here. It doesn't have to be here in the US, could be anywhere in the world. You have memberships to any medical association, to a welfare organization. I was part of some welfare society. I was also part of a program called Mind Mentally in Distress, where we would go off to far-flung areas in Pakistan and provide care to people who were definitely mentally in distress, who were psychiatric patients who couldn't afford, whose families could not afford to bring them to tertiary care centers for proper treatments. We would go out into the peripheries and provide some treatment. So any membership, any activity, you're going to make sure you fill all of these things up in this application. Volunteer work, anything you did on the side, your hobbies, you have a YouTube channel, perhaps you have an Instagram page, you are into photography, you will have multiple segments, because nowadays they're not looking for the most studious or the person with the highest scores. Yes, that definitely has value. However, they're looking for people who are well-rounded and people who can relate to somebody. You can stay in an elevator, confined in an elevator, and the elevator is not working, and you can have an excellent conversation with your partners or anybody else that is in the elevator, that you won't be a boring person. So they want people who have different skills, different aptitudes, and are well-rounded individuals. So make sure you put everything in there. All right, moving forward. Experiences. Please identify and describe up to 10 experiences that communicate who you are. 10 experiences what communicate who you are. You are part of welfare organizations, or you have done anything spectacular in your life. If you have volunteered for an earthquake, if there was a flood disaster happening, if there was some dengue fever outbreak and you volunteered, if you went on a mission to a country in South America or in Africa, anywhere else, mention it over here. Like I mentioned, like I said, that they are looking for well-rounded individuals and people who are fairly interesting. Of course, not everyone would have things like these. However, plug in whatever you have, plug it in. But of course, be truthful, because if you put in anything incorrect over here, sooner or later somebody's going to find it and catch it. So make sure whatever it is absolutely true. The context, the roles, the responsibilities, make sure this is accurate and make sure this is going to be correct. All right, so going through these multiple entries, I know everyone. For example, I used to make models of ships and houses and different structures using toothpick, and I had all the proof for it. I had put that down in my application because that is what was interesting. And yeah, anything at all, any hobby, you are an avid sportsman, you have won a few medals, you are part of any sporting event or team, put that down right in here. You're part of some dramatic society, you were in the debate team, anything, I would say put it down in here. All right, next we are moving on to meaningful experiences. All right, so what made this experience meaningful? Something really grand, something that other people have not had the opportunity to experience. I would say I was actually part of a live televised fundraisers for flood victims, and I was handling the phones, and people who want to donate, they were calling our phone lines, and I was volunteering for that purpose. And I talked to people and they would talk about their willingness to donate money for the flood. That is one experience I could put in here. Then my experience as going to an earthquake zone and helping the people out who were in real bad shape and providing the first relief and aid to those individuals. That experience was certainly life-changing, and I know lots of people have similar type experiences. They've helped out the needy, the poor, they've worked for the homeless shelter. You probably had experiences that you can plug in right over here, and how that affected you, how that changed you, and how that made you become a better or a different person. It could be anything. You were volunteering in the ER and there was a massive casualty event happen. There was a motor vehicle accident where there were 2 buses involved, and you were there and you were helping out, and you learned firsthand how your skills could actually help the people who actually need the most help. So plug it in your meaningful experiences. Doesn't have to be medical related. I think it could be anything in here. Then we have impactful experiences. So anything that is certainly could be beyond your medical experiences, your family background, first generation to graduate college, financial background, tell them about it. If you are from a far-flung area, you are from a poor village where they have one tube well and everybody has cows, or they work under a big landlord and everybody are just indentured servants for that big landlord for that area. And however, there was a school and your parents actually made sure that you had the proper schooling, even though they were struggling and your other brothers and sisters were working in the fields. But they said, no, you are the guy who they see a spark in you, and you're somebody that they feel is going to make a difference in their family. They want you to go to school, and you were the person who went to school, and now you are here in the US for your next step, and how you are going to use this for the benefit of your family back home. So anything meaningful. Of course, again, don't lie, don't exaggerate. Make sure this is true, because if anybody starts to ask you questions and you're not able to back it up with reasoned answers, you know, that's gonna be trouble. Of course, you don't want to be acting as a victim of something that you have not suffered through, because you know, truth will definitely be separated from falsehood in this situation. I don't want you to lie. I want you to speak the truth. Make sure you're speaking the truth in any of these things. All right, then moving forward to general life circumstances, I think you get the picture. Hobbies, mention any of these hobbies, interests. For example, I talked about my hobby of working with toothpicks and making ships, houses, anything. I would use toothpicks and glue. That's it. And make my creations. I also had a sketchbook. I used to draw. I used to be an avid portfolio artist. And I would even mention that, hey, during medical school, I would be sitting in the lecture hall, of course, try to listen, but when I got bored, I would draw portfolios and sketches of my audience and the teacher that is in front of me. And I would share it with my colleagues, and once I actually got into trouble, that the teacher actually picked it up, that, hey, what are you doing over there? What are you sharing? And I had to share that I made a picture of him. I drew a picture of this guy, and he was actually happy because it was a fairly good picture. I would say share something like that, put something in as your hobbies and interests. Make sure you show that you are a well-rounded individual. You're just not a smart doctor. You are also a well-rounded individual with abilities, with skills, with interests that go beyond medicine, and you are, again, a well-rounded individual. All right, now they're going back into more of the medical stuff, your licenses and certifications. If you already have any medical license, you practiced anything at all, put this in here. I would say a lot of people will probably not be putting in anything in here. Additional questions. Now, these are just legal type questions, because in the US, you will realize after your residency, you are filling out these type of questionnaires like a few times a year. You're applying for this, you're applying for that. They will ask you, have you ever been convicted? Have you had a felony? Do you have a medical condition that prevents you from practicing properly? So of course, if you have any of these conditions and these issues, you have to put it down. Yeah, I'm a criminal from back in the day. So, I mean, you will have to put it down. You will have to provide some explanation, and you'll also have to say that, yes, I've changed and everything else. But of course, put it down. For most of you, 99% of you, you will have nothing to mark in here. So that is good, clean, and easy for you to move forward. So are you able to carry out your responsibilities of a resident, intern, or fellow? Response, yes. I would say put that in there. Have your medical license been suspended, revoked, or voluntarily terminated? Do yes only if that has happened, possibly in your own country. And, you know, most people will be no. Have you been named in a malpractice case? Probably no. And you will go down this list. Have you ever been convicted of a felony in the US? No. So make sure all of these are properly marked. Now, board certifications, most people will be no. Other certifications, you probably have some at your country. If you have had, as we discussed earlier, make sure you mark these over here. If you have a DEA number, heck, you don't need to be a doctor to have a DEA number. It could be anybody else. So put these things down over here. Publications, if you have any peer-reviewed journals, abstracts, and they're published. All right, so they have to be published. This is self-explanatory. The journal's title, authors, make sure you follow the proper order, last name, first initial and middle initial. Make sure you follow these guidelines properly. Make sure you plug this in. If you've ever published anything, then you know how to fill this up. If you had a book chapter, make sure you mark it down in here. This is where you are now going to be boasting about yourself. Yes, that you have done all of these things. All right, then we have scientific monograph. So this is you are involved in some research. You have a theory, and you publish that somewhere. This is what is called a scientific monograph. So make sure if you have been involved in any type of significant experiments and research activity, you can always plug that here as well. Other articles, make sure you plug these things here. Poster presentation. Now, this is the easiest thing. You don't have to publish anything. You put together a poster and you did this in your annual research day, perhaps. You did not get published in any journal. Make sure you plug these things in. These are very easy. If you are beyond that and your poster was recognized, you may get an oral presentation, because I was doing research. I had lots and loads of presentations, posters, oral talks at international conferences. So I was able to plug in many of these details. If you haven't, I would say if you had presented a poster in your wards, if you had presented your research for your community medicine department, perhaps, I would say plug that in here. Don't leave it blank. I think most of us have had something to mark as a presentation poster or an oral presentation. Plug this in here. Of course, they will know where you actually presented, and they will, consider for themselves whether this is good enough for them or not. Just plug it in, but make sure you have done it. Make sure you've done it. You're not lying. Make sure you've done it. So peer-reviewed online publication, it is not published in print, but it is online published. There are a lot of publications that are online only. Non-peer-reviewed online publication, if that's you, then you know what it is. Peer-reviewed means that, at least I believe in the US, basically means that you are looking to publish a research study. You submit it to that journal, and they have people who are involved with that particular field, and 3 or 4 people, they look at your paper and they review it. And these are your peers, and they are reviewing your submission. They're reviewing your article or research paper. So this is called peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed, of course, has much more weight compared to non-peer-reviewed. However, doesn't matter. If you have done it, plug it in, put it in. Make sure that you don't miss any of these things. All right, now I believe is probably one of the most important parts is signals. Now, back in the day, we did not have program signals. Now, signals is something that is new, but I'm being told that half of your interviews will be coming from programs that you actually signal. And a lot of programs, basically a lot of programs that get thousands of applications, they're not able to review all of these applications. What they will actually do is they will look at the applications, applicants who have actually signaled them. If they say, okay, we got these 500 signals, let's call in 100 people from these 500 individuals. So there will be a list of, depending on the specialty that you are applying to, for example, anesthesia, emergency medicine, each different specialty will have a different number of signals that they can send off. And this will be fairly important, because I believe half of your interviews are going to be coming from here. So make sure the signals that you send, make sure these are the programs that you have to research in detail. Make sure you actually fulfill the criteria of these programs. I would say look at their website. Make sure you are fulfilling the criteria. Your year of graduation is within 3 years or 5 years, or you have these certain scores, or you have a research background, or these programs fit in with your geographical preferences. Make sure you at least do your detailed study on these programs, and you need to know these programs in and out. And I would say this is a good reason to send a message out to the program coordinator that, hey, I want to make sure that I am a person who fulfills all of your criterias. I know there are thousands of other people, but I want to make sure, because I'm going to be signaling to your program, and I want to be in your program because I believe I'm a great candidate for your program. So get this feedback. Make sure you do not waste your signals. All right, let's go back into this thing. All right, see over here, emergency medicine, you can send off 5 signals. Family medicine, 5 signals. General surgery, 15 signals. All right, internal medicine, 3 gold and 12 silver signals. Gold, you really want those places. Neurology, neurological surgery, 25 signals. So make sure that you really hone in on those 15 programs. If this is you, 15 programs you select, and this is where your research is going to come into, is going to be fairly important over here. And don't miss out on this. Don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. All right, moving forward, certification is here. I certified that the information within this ERAS application is complete and accurate to the best of my knowledge. Make sure you collect this and you submit this appropriately. So happy filling up this application. I'm going to have a separate video where I talk about all the details regarding your personal statement, your recommendation letters. Make sure that you check out for that video, and also in my video where I talk about how to use ChatGPT to put together your personal statement. You need some more help looking to connect, then I will have links in the description, and you can probably find my 25 questions and answers, a PDF. Gives you the questions and the answers, and you can practice on your own. You need further help, you can check the link in the description as well. Possible sessions with small groups as well as possibly one-to-one. And if you want to become a member of my channel on YouTube, and we will be having live interview preparation sessions as well, consider becoming a member there as well. And of course, we'll chat over on Facebook as well. I will have all the links for all of my social handles in the description. Hopefully it helps. Thank you.